All right. Thank you, Adi and Shani, for coming on to Vonvo.com today and telling the world, about what's going on in Israel. Why don't we just jump right into it? Where exactly are you both located, and what's kind of going on around you?
We're both living in Herzliya, and we're living around Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So whatever happens there, we've been pretty nervous about.
Uh huh. Is that in like northern or central, southern Israel? Where
It's Central Israel.
central
So
Israel?
it didn't.
Yeah, go.
We didn't feel it. We didn't feel it directly too hard. There weren't too many sirens, but of course, the entire time we were constantly on the news, constantly seeing what was going on down south. We have a lot of friends who are in the army, fighting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Got it. And so you mentioned that you didn't have tons of sirens, but over in your town of Herzliya, did you hear some sirens, and what would happen when that occurred?
Well, when I was in Tel Aviv and Ramat Aviv, I heard sirens. And the first time I heard the siren, I was actually just sitting down to eat at a restaurant. And as soon as we sat down, we heard a siren. The
Really?
first siren I've ever heard, I was pretty nervous. I didn't know what to do. I kind of just like looked at my friend, and we both ran to the kitchen in the restaurant. And then we saw everyone running towards one specific place, which was the bomb shelter. So we went there, and it was pretty traumatizing seeing everyone running and all the kids crying, and yeah, it was scary.
Really? That must have been pretty scary. So basically, it was just everyone was frantically sort of running for their lives when that occurred, and that was the first time you had actually heard the siren and had to act that way.
Yeah, yeah, and it was really unexpected because everyone was saying that it's not going to reach Tel Aviv; it's just going to stay down south. But
When did that happen?
when was it? A week and a half ago.
A week and a half ago. Got it.
Was the first siren. There were, I think, five sirens in total
Hmm.
throughout the war before the ceasefire.
And so you were in Tel Aviv that day, but also inside of Jerusalem, right? The sirens have gone off as well, correct?
Yeah, we're not we're about a 45-minute drive from Jerusalem. So we didn't hear that siren. It didn't go off in our area, but for example, my family's there, so it was just every second, constantly just calling your family, calling your friends, making sure that everyone's okay. So it was a very difficult time period.
Got it. So now the two of you, Addie, you're from Hong Kong, but you've been living in Israel for 2 years now. Shani, when are you full Israeli? And how long? What's
So
your background?
my parents are Israeli. I was born in in New York, and I've been living in New Jersey until 18, and I've been here for 4 years now.
Really? Okay, so like, I mean, why don't you two just tell me a little? And either you can start first, like going from Hong Kong or going from New York, New Jersey area over to Israel. What's really totally different about your life, and I guess more so, how does this crisis between Israel and Palestine kind of impact your daily life?
Um, okay, well, basically, when I lived in Hong Kong and there'd be war, I'd always hear about it in the news, and I mean, the Jewish community would kind of be talking about it, but I feel like I was ignorant, and everyone else there is also pretty ignorant because they're not actually experiencing the real thing. They're just hearing from the outside, and they're hearing from biased news stations. And everyone around me in Hong Kong that wasn't Jewish was watching either BBC or CNN, so they'd be very pro Palestine. So
Really?
it'd be very, very hard. And like now that I'm here in Israel during this time, I really couldn't think of anywhere better to be. Like I just feel so much more united with the country, and I have so much respect for the Israeli army. And I'm just really glad that I could be here and not there during this time because I just feel like I'm part of it, and
So
I feel like that's the
basically,
way it should be.
and Shani, we'll go to you in a second, but basically, Addie, so when you were in Hong Kong, for the most part, you think that the news over there and what it would report about this crisis would give more of the impression on people that
Oh yeah,
was pro-Palestinian?
yeah, most definitely.
Most definitely. Is there
Yeah.
specific things that you're seeing that like different from how the news is reported over there to now being actually in the country that people need to know about that you want to share with people? Like,
I mean, now that I'm here in the country, I actually hear about what's going on in Israel, not just how many people are dying in Palestine. When
hmm
you're outside in Hong Kong, all you hear is just the amounts of deaths that were in Palestine and how the Israeli army killed this person and this person. And that's all everyone was talking about just because of the numbers. And, like, they didn't look at what was behind it and the reasons for it. And they just didn't look at the facts. They just looked at the number of deaths, and that's what shaped their opinion.
I
The
got you.
problem is that the news and the media, many of them portray just the Palestinians' death, and they don't explain the reason that the whole operation started was because we couldn't the people, the Jews down south, the Israelis down south, they couldn't live anymore that they were living. Every day they would have to worry about sirens. My cousins live down south on the border of Gaza, and every day they would have little children would just have to run to hiding, to cylinder blocks, to different places every time they would hear the siren, and it had to stop. They couldn't continue like this.
So every day your cousins were running, just about every day, your cousins down in the southern part of Israel were, doing the same thing that Addie was doing in Tel Aviv, running for her life, scared,
Yeah,
shitless of what the hell's going on here, right? Like just something crazy might just go down.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah,
And
very often.
very often. Got it. And so what about going back to the original question, Shani, what about you, moving from America now in Israel, what do you kind of see different? Is it similar to what Addie had to say?
Yeah, very very similar to what Adi was saying. Um, they basically, I would always, every time there would be a war or something going on, I would I would hear about it. I would watch the news a bit. Of course, it would be hard because I have a lot of family here, but I wouldn't think about it too much. And I remember my parents always getting very emotional and wishing that they were in Israel. And now that I was in Israel during a time like this, I completely understand why they want to be in Israel during this time. First of all, the entire country gets very united, and it's so nice at times like these, even though there are so many different religious views. Um, but mostly it was very hard to see the to really understand how much of Palestine, how much pro-Palestinian propaganda there is um, outside of Israel.
Got it. Um, one second. So what I was gonna ask next is so they reached a ceasefire, right? Between Israel and in Palestine, Hamas. Um, what are both your opinions, on the fact that that's occurred, and do you think it will hold? Uh,
Um, well, of course, we really all we would want is for it to hold. To be honest, not I'm very doubtful about it. We were really happy about the ceasefire because, as we explained, we have a lot of friends who are in the army, and if there hadn't been a ceasefire reached, then that means that our friends would have gone in a ground operation,
yeah,
which is scary because of course there will be a lot more casualties. Um, but yeah, basically, I'm not so sure if it will hold.
hmm
As much as I hope so, we are dealing with a terrorist organization.
yeah,
But I always, of course, believe the best in people, so I hope that it's safe.
yeah, yeah. Now, what about has has there been any news in Israel? Because I don't believe it's been reported here in the U.S. Um, about what do you call it? Um, this ceasefire, being have there been any missiles fired into Israel since the ceasefire? Has it been broken at all? Has there been any missiles fired in to Israel that you've heard of?
The morning of the ceasefire, there were rockets fired into Israel, but From what I know, that was it.
Okay, and
There were
nothing.
about 12 to 15 rockets fired um, into Israel, into the south, after 9 p.m. of the night of the ceasefire. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, but since then, you think so far it's been in the clear, right?
Yeah, but to be honest, I'm still very careful with where I go and what I
Right.
do because you never know what could happen
Yeah.
with.
So I mean, so like on that idea, like when there was that bus explosion in Tel Aviv,
Yeah,
um, you girls have been in Israel only for a few years now, so I'm assuming that you haven't. Maybe at least in the news over here, they don't really report on that as much as it was missiles. But I feel like let's say a decade ago, you heard about all those bus bombings and stuff, right? Suicide bombers. So when you saw that happen, what really, internally, what really went through your head?
I was very honestly, I wasn't shocked because I had a feeling it would happen.
Hmm.
But I took a bus that morning to Tel Aviv, so when I heard about it, I was extremely like shaken up. I was like I knew this would happen, but at the same time, I can't believe this actually happened. And it just it should just show everyone that they really need to be careful, no matter what the news says, whether it says that there's a ceasefire or not, or whether they're not going to have suicide bombers or whatever. They should always be careful because you never know with
Hmm.
terrorists, which is just a scary way to live your life. You
Yeah,
shouldn't have to be worrying about your bus being bombed
of
on the
course
way to
not.
work in the morning.
You don't need to convince me. um, okay, so why don't then I want to move into a few other things. You both are in school right now. Do you have any Palestinian friends, Arab friends, that you go to school with or that you've met since you've been there?
Actually, I work with a lot of Arabic people. I work at a I work at a restaurant as well as a waitress, and most of the chefs are Arabic and waiters, and like I mean, I'm very good friends with some of them. There's nothing I have nothing against them really. It's just because it's not them. Do you know what I mean?
It's not. Is it? So then, I mean, it's not them. But when you say that statement, like, do you mean it's? Do you think it's entirely Hamas? Are those people just Arab Israelis, or are they Palestinian people and they live within Gaza or the West Bank? These people, do you know exactly?
No, these people are Arab Israeli,
Okay.
but they do have their views, and we would sit down and have conversations about the conflict while it was going on. And I mean, they would obviously be like, "We're not choosing a side. We're not," but it's at the same time they were also saying like, "These are it's our family, it's our people." You know what I mean? And they are getting killed, so they were saying,
So most of these Arab Israelis, they have ties to people within Palestine usually.
"Yeah,
Okay. And is there a reason why those Arab Israelis you think are living perfectly normal with you, and you said you're good friends with some of them? Like, what exactly is the difference? I've heard about this blue passport card that you need to kind of live within Israel. Do those people have that? Is that it?
sorry."
Like, in order to live within Israel or leave like Gaza or the West Bank, you have to have like some blue passport, right? That a certain documentation. Do you know what I'm referring?
Yeah.
So, do those people that you work with, do they
Yeah.
have that blue passport? Is that why they work with you because they're able to, uh, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They have a ID. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And Shani, what about you? Do you have some Arabic or Palestinian friends as well?
To be honest, I don't. IDC actually, the school that we go to doesn't have that many Palestinians. It's actually considered to be a Zionist school.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that there are a few, and I work for a French company, so
Okay.
there are no Arab workers.
No problem, no problem. So I mean, then ultimately, like moving into Hamas and like they're considered a terrorist organization. I mean, do you think that they're truly representative of the people within Gaza and their feelings?
Um, I wouldn't really know, like, to say because I've never been there, but from what I have seen from TV and media, I don't think that they do. I think I think people in Gaza are actually scared of Hamas.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think that I have nothing against Palestinians. Um, Personally, I think that they're definitely run by Hamas. I think that they run a big part of their lives. I think they put rules on them. I think that they're blaming. I think that a lot of the media blames Israel for Palestine not having for the Gazans not having many rights and being able to live successful lives. But I honestly don't think it's the Israelis' fault. I think that a lot of it has to do with the terrorist organizations putting all of these bans and restrictions on their people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what some of those like? Do you know any of the specifics about what they do to their people that you think causes that you can share with us?
I mean, again, it's only what I've seen from the media, so I don't want to say I don't know. I don't know what's true and what's not true because I've seen how they manipulate like the media to show lies about us. So like
It could be
from
just
what
the
I've seen, exactly. But from what I've seen, like they raise their kids from the beginning to hate Jews and to kill Jews, and that's their mission to kill Jews.
Yeah.
And they use their kids as human shields. But this is again everything that I've just heard. I don't know for a fact. And just something that I mean, this is what I've read that, for example, Israel. One of the things that we put restrictions, but every restriction that so far I've heard of has only been a restriction that's to protect Israel's safety. Like for example, in like an airport and certain things. Like that thing is only because if they would have that, Hamas would use that to their advantage and just finish us.
Yeah, yeah. No, totally. And I mean, so, I mean, like ultimately, like my website Vonvo, right? I'm gonna move into a little more like objective questions that I want to ask you guys, and it relates a little bit to Palestinians because, like, our website here, our mission is really to give everyone a voice, and we want to have objective discussions and real valuable conversations. So I want to like maybe move into a few questions because over the past few days I've had to like do some of my own research on how Palestinians live, and there's obviously some criticism that Israel takes, right? And so I wanted to maybe get your opinion on that. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, one thing that I've heard a lot about is these Israeli settlements that have been built on what's technically considered Palestinian lands, like within like the West Bank. And I've spoken to a few people about it, and everyone kind of gives me a different answer. I wanted to know what are your thoughts on Israel building huge, elaborate nice settlements or gorgeous settlements, whatever, on what is technically considered Palestinian lands. Do you think that's right?
No. I believe that this land was given to us. Like, listen, I just think that there are so many. First of all, of course, I've actually never heard of this, but if there is land that that is in fact the Palestinians and we are building on it, that's not right of us. But I know that we've given them so much land in order to try to create peace, and it's never really helped.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, the Arabs have so many other countries. This is just one little place for Israel.
Yeah.
That we've been given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And I guess just I mean, what's weird.
It's just like no matter how much we compromise, they want more. They'll always want more.
Uh huh. No. I mean, it's definitely an interesting point. I just
and if we can live in peace, we would be so happy with it. But if we can't live like that, we have to defend ourselves.
Yep. And so ultimately, that's really all this comes down to. You guys want Do you think you speak for almost a majority of Israelis that when it comes to living within with Palestinians living within Israel and you guys living amongst each other, you guys are totally down with that, based upon if there's just peace exchange for that?
Um, yeah, like I would say I am, but I'm not speaking for the majority of the country. No.
You think that what are some of the other
Um,
people's feelings? Do you think?
um, like I wouldn't know how to say, but I figure like people in Israel have been they grew up here. Like lived through everything, and I think it'd be harder for them to live with people that made them live in fear their whole lives.
Uh huh.
So
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I hear where you're coming from. Um, Let me see here. I guess then the other thing, going back to that whole settlement idea, do you, what's interesting is like it was like let's say 2 years ago or so when there was some peace negotiations going on here with like Obama and Israel, to try and foster something with Palestinians, and a lot of the discussion here would be about these settlements, and uh, you guys really don't. Do they not report some of that stuff in Israel about like these? It's I guess when I say settlements, more like they kind of look like apartment complexes, like but nice ones. Do you guys have you heard about those things though being built on like Palestinian lands or not really?
yeah, no, actually, I have heard
Oh,
of
okay.
it. I remember about 3 years ago there was a lot of conflict about it when I was living in Jerusalem. But
And
I
so
mean,
if
I
though,
don't think.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I definitely don't agree with it. If it's land that we've given to them or is theirs, then we shouldn't be building on it. And I'm sure that's.
And
I
even
don't.
if if
Yeah.
even if you built them, would you be perfectly fine though with just Palestinians be able to live within those facilities? Like, do you think that would be a fair trade off if you were going to build on the land?
Yeah, if I built on their land, then why not?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. 1 second. Got it. All right. Nice. So I guess another thing that I would ask both of you is what do you guys think about? Did you hear about the Egyptian riots that have gone on over the past like day or two? Have you heard about that?
Not too much. I remember there was in the past as well, but I haven't really
Yeah, so like
followed.
basically the president of Egypt, right, who brokered your ceasefire with between Israel and Palestine, right?
Yeah.
He was like considered here in the U.S. like the major focal point behind bringing about this ceasefire, and then like 24 hours later, like apparently there was these riots, excuse me, inside of Israel, actually inside of Egypt, um, calling him like a dictator and stuff like that. Do you have any like thoughts on what that might mean? Like that this guy that America was praising for like doing this whole ceasefire and everything, and now like the people of that country are rioting like against him and saying he has too much power. Do you like have a does that kind of like make sense to you? Do you see anything weird about that?
Um, I don't know too much about it.
Uh huh.
Yeah, I don't really either.
That's
But
fine.
yeah, I know that for example, Egypt did want to help Hamas, like they wanted to help the Gazans.
Hmm.
Maybe it's connected with that the Egyptians weren't happy that there's a ceasefire. But I really don't know too much. But it does sound very odd.
Yeah. No. Totally. Okay. Cool. Let me see here. So then, I guess then the next thing I'd ask is, do you have any idea what you think like the strategic objectives of like any ground invasion that could happen? Let's say the ceasefire is just it's let's say Palestinians start firing rockets into Israel and they decide to do a ground invasion. Do you have any idea what like the real objectives of doing that would be?
We're not in the army.
Yeah. Have any of your friends told you anything about that though?
The process. What?
Have any of your friends that are in the army shared with you any of that?
They're not really. I mean, they're not really allowed to speak too much. I reckon even if we were in the army, we wouldn't be able to tell. Yeah. You right now.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I guess one thing that I wanted to bring up. Do either of you have an opinion on like what the U.S. should be doing with this entire crisis right now and like steps going forward, towards solutions? How you think the U.S. should be acting?
How the U.S. should be reacting?
Yeah.
Well, I think that I don't think they. I really don't know what to say. I think it's a very. Hold on a second. I'm really sorry. My neighbor is here.
Yeah, it's fine. Take your time. Go ahead.
Can you just wait a few minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, sorry.
That's fine. No problem.
Well, obviously, America is supporting Israel and has been supporting Israel. And I know that Obama was going on and off about whether there should be ceasefire, whether he agrees with with going in with the ground invasion. I think that America has in the past supported Israel very much, and I think they should continue considering the circumstances. And I think that also since Clinton came here and she experienced it a bit herself, I think that they see what our real situation is and that they should support us 100%.
Mm-hmm. 1 second. Okay. Very cool. So another interesting thing that I wanted to bring up is like what is just like you're being in the country for a few years now. Like, what's your overall opinion or your view on, I guess either Palestinians, Hamas, you hear about like the PLO and Fatah. Like, do you guys have just like one overall feeling towards all of these people, or is it like kind of broken down between each one of these groups? Can you kind of like describe for me that what your feeling is towards the entire Palestinian population?
I mean, I guess it is separate between like Hamas and let's say the citizens, or I think that we put all the terrorist groups into organizations into one category. Yeah. And that the Palestinians, we hope like the ones that are affected by them in the negative manner. Of course, we don't agree with them, but I think that a lot of us, maybe not all of us, because Israelis have trouble understanding even regular Palestinian citizens just because of conflict. But if we could live in peace with the regular Palestinians, we very much would want to, as opposed to living under threat all the time. And as for the terrorist organizations, they're terrorist organizations.
Yeah. And you think their total intentions are just, wiping Israel off the map, right?
Well, they've said it themselves. They don't care for us to be alive. They don't want peace. They have a ceasefire for now because otherwise, I think that their people won't see them as the victim, and they won't. I honestly don't think that they will really truly stop until we're all gone, or until they have all of Israel to themselves.
So do you guys have? I mean, it's a tough question to answer, but do you have, being in the country for a few years now, do you have a personal opinion of what you think the solution is moving forward? And I kind of sometimes find myself asking with like a lot of just like the cultural differences, like asking anyone that's come onto Vonvo, like, is it just a matter of like people growing up already and living within the same borders without any issues?
I don't think it's about people growing up, but I think, first of all, to come up with a solution for this is just so hard, just because the Israelis and the Palestinians have such a different way of looking at conflict. I feel like, just like people have been saying, that if Israel told them that they would put the weapons down, stop shooting, stop firing, stop everything, then there would be no Israel anymore. There would be no Israelis, there would be no Israel. It's everything gone. But if it was the other way around, if they told us that they would stop, then I believe that there would be peace. So I guess my answer is the only way there'll be peace is if they somehow decide to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as two-state solution, if that could actually work, me personally, I would very much like that, but I'm not sure that in this state that it could actually, it would actually do anything if a two-state solution was approved.
Yep. From the time that you've been inside Israel, do you see anything that the Israelis do towards Palestinians? The system that they have of, occupying those lands and whatever support they give them. Do you see any parts of that system, or have you heard of any parts of that system that you think are semi-flawed or totally flawed in how Palestinians are treated through the Israeli government?
Honestly, no.
No.
Unless we're talking about what we spoke about earlier about certain restrictions that Israel puts on Gaza, which are just purely for safety.
Yep.
There's nothing that I'm aware of.
Yeah, because I guess the reason why I bring it up is because if we're kind of the three of us in agreement that Hamas is just a terrorist organization that they represent the Palestinian people, but ultimately it doesn't really seem like every Palestinian wants Israel off the map, right? We kind of agree on that. It's primarily this terrorist organization that kind of pushed.
And even besides for that, I think that the fact that there are so many Palestinians and there are so many of these Arabs that can be raised in such a different manner, but they raise them in such a way that they believe in death and death to the Jews and basically what these terrorist organizations instill into their children.
Just generation after generation after generation, and it's not changing.
Yeah, I mean, just because what I was leading to before is that, I asked previously, do you think maybe any part of how they govern, or occupy Palestine is flawed? And the only reason why I ask is because if there are Palestinians that don't feel like Israel needs to be wiped off the map and they could live within, the Israeli borders, like peacefully, then, it's almost just trying to figure out a way to, migrate those people into the land of Israel and allow them to, live peacefully among everyone else. Because you hear kind of on the news that Israel might be, treating them unfairly and all this stuff, and the media portrays Israel as like, a place, of really economic prosperity, and Palestine is like in total ruins. And it's like, but if there are people within Palestine that don't feel the way Hamas feels, then how can Israel create a better system for having those people live within the Israeli borders? Let's say if they're not being treated well by Hamas, you know what I mean? Do you kind of see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do
you think that's an interesting point? Do you think that's an interesting point that
if Palestinians were to live in Israel and they would allow us to live comfortably and happily our Jewish lives, we don't have any other place where us as a nation can be Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere else, there's so many Arab countries, there's so many places where other people can portray their religion, and this is the one small little place the size of New Jersey where we want to express ourselves, and if they allow us to do that, then happily they can live with us.
Yep. Totally. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I've just kind of,
They can express themselves as well.
yeah, no, definitely. Um, so how about we've kind of touched on a variety of things, and obviously, I mean, like since for all we know, tomorrow there could be, excuse me, missiles, shot off into Israel, and this could turn into a whole new set of discussion. I'll move into kind of like the last question I ask each of the people that have joined me on Vonvo.com. What would be, and you could each answer separately, what would be the message that you would like anyone around the world who watches this video know about what's going on?
That I would like everyone to know that Israel's army is a defense force, and we are only defending ourselves, and we're not targeting civilians, we're not trying to hurt anyone. It's the Israeli Defense Force. It's all we can do to protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of a message would I like to send? I just really want the rest of the world, and I feel really passionate about it, to understand, again, similar to what Adi said, that we're purely defending ourselves. Like, all we want to do is live in peace. All we want to do is have this place where we can be Jewish, and where people can just let us be, and we can live happily and not have fear every single day of our lives that a missile is going to be thrown into us. And I want people around the world to understand that we didn't start the operation of Pillar of Cloud.
Yeah.
Because just for nothing. We started it because the people living down south in our country were in constant danger. My cousins were living in danger. My family and my friends who are in the army are constantly in danger. And yeah.
No, that was well said. So, you know what? I have one more question I want to throw at you two. Usually, I leave that message question for last, but whatever. What I was gonna say is, you mentioned it before about like the media and stuff. Um, and you guys came from different countries. You've been living in Israel now for a few years. Like, what do you think is the way for the outside world to really get their information now? Through, if you can't really even trust the media when you're inside of Israel, and when you were in Hong Kong, Addie, you see exactly what the differences are now. Like, what do you think is the way for people to get their news? And do you think that, a place like Vonvo, where it's really more citizens journalism, and citizens actually delivering important points and facts, is really the only way at this point? What would you say is the way for people to receive their information, truthful information?
I think it's a way for people to voice their opinions. I'm not so sure about truthful, because we also are prone to the media.
Yeah.
We could say first counter like what we see and what we feel, but we're also reading the news every day. I'm sure we're taking in certain biases.
Yeah, we're biased. Like, we are biased.
We're Jews,
obviously,
living in Israel, so of course we're gonna have our certain biases and opinions.
Yeah. But do you think that
I'm sure this is.
Do you think, like, the idea behind just having objective conversations and like trying and figuring out solutions that way is potentially better than what like the media is portraying, and how certain like ceasefires are being conducted and then them just breaking 2 weeks later potentially? Like, what if that's been not working for decades now, right? So it's a matter of what is the best way now for people to like understand this crisis is still going on, and yet like the status quo just isn't working.
I think that it's a good idea because it can shine a light on people's opinions, what other people are seeing, and other people's views. But at the same time,
it could get hectic.
Not just that. Also, at the same time, unless actual politicians that can actually make a difference are seeing this or are a part of this. I don't know how much this can help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
I can talk to a Palestinian and try to come up with a resolution all I want, but that's not going to get to the prime minister.
Yeah, I just think what's really important to note, and it's good for you guys to realize also, is that just with the amount of conversations that, and 1 second, I'm just plugging in my computer. With the amount of conversations that I'm having, and hearing that from people living within the side of the country, they're saying that we just want peace. Like, we live with Arabs and Palestinians within our borders now. Like, it's clearly possible for this to exist. The fact that for decades and decades there's still no peace, it just it kind of goes back to one of my earlier questions. Like, is this whole process just totally flawed in general of trying to come up with a solution because no one seems to be able to
I want to say yes, but at the same time, when there are these extremists, extreme terrorists who have such extreme opinions, like all they want is Jews dead. We've heard them. It's not like we're just making it up.
Yep.
We've heard them saying in speeches in Arabic translated.
Yep.
I don't know how much it can help, as much as I want it to. Maybe if online media, social networking, and everyone really joined together and tried to do something, maybe it can be effective. But I'm not sure when there are people just saying how much they want for Israel not to exist. And we're not saying that we don't want Palestine to exist. We're not saying that we don't want the Palestinians to have their own place as well. On the other side, they are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. That's like not what you guys are standing for. You're saying that you're fine with any solution that will just foster peace. Like, if that means 2 states. Okay. 1 second. Okay. All right, girls. So thank you so much, Adi and Shani, for coming in kind of last minute for both your opinions. That was awesome. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your voice on Vonvo.com.
Thank you, and this is a great idea.
Yeah, really.
I hope it really works out for you.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.